It was near the beginning of the war. The British were going to invade the island of Manhattan, and the young man from Connecticut had volunteered. It was a dangerous mission that he was on, but General Washington needed to know exactly when and where the British intended to move. And so Nathan Hale volunteered to go behind enemy lines and to gather as much information as he could and bring it back to the general. He would not make it back. The British caught him, called him a traitor, brought him to the gallows, and proceeded to execute him. Before he died, however, he gave one of the famous lines in American history. "I regret," said Nathan Hale, "I regret only that I have but one life to give for my country." This is a difficult sacrifice for people to understand. Most people are asked by their country to do a number of different things at different times. But what Lincoln called the last full measure is actually something very rarely that we ask. For Unitarian Universalists, this is a complicated day. It's a complicated day because most of us have no interest in glorifying war. The interdependent web of which we are all part helps us to recognize that we are not saved through war, and yet we do honor sacrifice. And it is true, to everything there is a time and a season and a purpose under heaven. I don't know if it was bravado that led Nathan Hale to say what he said, or it was a reflection on loving something so much that you in fact can give it everything and still want to give more. I certainly hope that it's the latter. What do we do with this gift that we have been given? In effect, we are the stewards of this legacy, and we might not waste it. Many of us may not know the origin of Memorial Day. This is one of the dangers of those who give that last full measure to the rest of us, is that we won't necessarily understand or interpret their gift appropriately. Among all the other things, this is something that the departed have to trust us with. It wasn't even originally called Memorial Day. It was called Decorations Day. And the history of it is long and complicated. What we now know of today as Memorial Day is often associated with the beginning of summer and a celebration of the armed services. But that's not entirely quite what the tradition was before. Today, we have so many different holidays that recognize those who serve the nation under arms. We have so many, in fact, that often we get them confused and forget what the purpose and meaning of each individual one might be. Memorial Day isn't a celebration of veterans per se. It's a memorialization of those who gave their lives for the benefit of the nation. And as we talked about last year, the nation is a story. So in effect, what people have given their lives for is a story. And the question becomes, what story do they want to tell? This is why it's important that we continue to focus on the origin, rather than make it a general statement about militarization, or the armed services, or even veterans. Might I suggest that it is better to focus on the fallen and the reason why they fell. The reason why their only regret might be that they had but one life to give to their country. There are several competing locations and times for Memorial Day. Congress originally in 1971 recognized a particular location in New York, Waterloo, New York, as the original Memorial Day. But there were decoration days even before that. And today I want to talk very briefly about the first, when people went out to place flowers at the gravesite of fallen soldiers. The first occasion of that happened very soon after the Civil War. And it happened in Charleston, South Carolina, which is an unusual place, one might think, for there to be a recognition of the Union soldiers. The folks in Charleston, South Carolina who remained were largely freed black slaves. And at the end of the war, as Charleston was being evacuated, there was an existing POW camp there. And the Union soldiers were kept under very bad conditions. Over 200 of the soldiers, the Union soldiers, were buried in a mass grave outside of the racetrack. In the early part of May, freed slaves came out to bury the Union soldiers and give them a proper burial. So they had been disinterred and given headstones. And there was a fence that was put around the cemetery, and the children came out and they placed flowers on the graves of the Union soldiers. And there were public speeches and preaching and appreciation given for those soldiers who gave their lives so that others might be free. This was the first Memorial Day that was recognized after the Civil War. And across the graveyard, there was a sign that was put up that said, "The Martyrs of the Racetrack." And as they came through town, they sang the song, "John Brown's Body." When we think today about Memorial Day, we have to ask ourselves, are we being good stewards of that tradition? Things are happening today which haven't happened in 100 years. And when remarkable things happen in this world, often our fallback is to think about them in terms of a war. Certainly our current leadership has decided that this public health crisis should be referred to as a war. The president has declared that he is a wartime president. COVID-19 is described as an enemy, a treacherous enemy, a silent enemy, an invisible enemy, a deadly enemy, and not often an illness, a pandemic, or a public health crisis. I can't count the number of times that we have had military jets flying over as though this were going to do anything significant to stop the virus. War is often used as a way to distract people from the actual problems that they are encountering. Problems like racism, problems like poverty, problems like injustice and inequality. And if we can just continue to couch things as war, maybe we'll forget. Maybe we'll forget about injustice and inequality. Maybe we'll forget about racism. Or maybe we will remember. Maybe the sacrifice that the doctors make, the sacrifice that the healthcare workers make, the sacrifice that people are willing to make at this time, not because it's a war, but willing to pay even with the last full measure, as Lincoln described it. Maybe that sacrifice is something truly holy. And maybe if we go back to the original idea of Memorial Day, if we go back to the idea not that people fell just in war, not for glory or honor, but in fact as a sacrifice, an acknowledgement that we are in fact one another's keeper, that we have a moral, ethical, holy obligation to look after and take care of one another, that we are one another's stewards, that we are one another's keeper, that we love our neighbor as much as we love ourselves, and that we know that even if our actions are not protecting ourselves, they are protecting our neighbor. And maybe that is the lesson of Memorial Day. Maybe that is in fact what we are honoring. So let's be good stewards. Let's hold the tradition and the spirit of Memorial Day, not to rob valor, to celebrate the great gift that our fellow citizens have given to each of us. And if we have but one regret, let it be this: that we have but one life to make useful and to offer for the betterment of everyone. Thanks for watching The Reflection. The Unitarian Universalist Church of Greeley puts full services online every Sunday at 10 o'clock Mountain Time on this channel. If you liked The Reflection, please do like it here. And if you want to share it more broadly, please do so using the link below. Up here is where there are more reflections that might be of interest to you, and below is a video that YouTube thinks you'd like to watch. Thank you for being with us. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments section. Hope to see you next time.